The purpose of exposition is transferring information to someone so he can understand something. It is not about presenting facts, as it is about explaining and rationalizing them. Good presentation may keep you interested in something, but good exposition can help you be immersed into something. It makes you feel like whatever you are experiencing is believable, or it makes sense, or it feels right, so you can accept it as it is presented and like it for what it is. In terms of anime, it is what helps people get over the uncanny valley effect of watching something that is stigmatized as just for kids or nothing but porn. Exposition works through our senses, and although we have 5 in total, only 2 are used in almost every case. Hearing is one of them. You listen to the radio or a podcast or a series where some guys are explaining something. What they are saying is meant to provide you with more information of what is going on with them or the world around them. It is the cheapest method to use since it doesn't require any elaborate cinematography. You can just have some characters standing still, with the only part they need to use being the mouth. If it's animated, it doesn't even need to have lip synchronization. It can just repeat the same motion. It's doing its job, and it saves the animators a lot of time and money. It's done properly when the characters need to express opinions or impressions, what they think something is or what someone wants. Now pay attention to what I mean. It's not about stating facts, it's about critique or questioning or motivations. So for example, if someone sees a guy shooting at people for no apparent reason, the proper use of talking exposition would be him saying, "He's insane," which is a critique, or "Is he a terrorist?" which is questioning, or "He wants to kill us," which is an attempt to explain his motivation. Talking exposition is done improperly when it is stating the obvious, such as saying, "Hey look, somebody's shooting at people. Thank you very much, we can see that, there is no point for you to say it." And yet this is something most shows are doing. Something happens and there just has to be someone describing it to the audience, even when what is going on is pretty clear. From the producer's perspective, this is done as a way to chew more time out of an episode, or because they don't trust their audience to get it on their own. They think they are stupid, and that if they don't spell it out to them, they will get confused and change the channel. And trust me when I tell you how a show's credibility gets very tarnished if its very creators consider their audience being incapable to think for themselves. There are cases where talking seems to be the only way possible for making someone understand the scene. For example, what if a character needs to describe an event to another character who didn't witness it firsthand? Of course, and we would be limited to talking in this case, the event is already over or is happening too far away for the other guy to experience it in any other way. In real life, having someone been limited to simply describing events would make sense. But thanks to the wonders of modern technology, everything can be presented by using video or images. Having someone simply sitting on a table and describing events can get pretty boring without something extra to it. In the case of a TV series, there can be flashbacks or simulations of the events that are described. If there is none of those, then the producers are being cheap and lazy. There are other cases when some sort of technology or magic system needs to be explained. Simply showing them wouldn't help most of the viewers to understand how a hypothetical technology or a made-up system of magic works. So it feels like we are stuck to having an info dump where people or a narrator describe for several minutes how something works. This can become very boring if a series doesn't have anything good to show while shoehorning the terminology explanations. There are of course many who love info dumping for the sake of explaining more things about the weird world of the show, but that way they care more about the setting and not the actual story and characters. They like what is going on in theory rather than what is going on with the plot. Although somewhat limiting, most cases of info dump can be avoided with simple internal monologues. Someone can indirectly describe what just happened by thinking about it, with the audience being able to hear his thoughts. This feels far more natural than when we get ridiculous expo talk moments. It feels fake and stupid when people in series mention things that to them are self-evident and need no mentioning, or when they are talking to a wall next to them just so the audience can get it, also known as breaking the fourth wall. Of course, just talking and be done with it can serve its purpose just as fine. If the audience doesn't mind the laziness that is expo talking, then there is no real problem. But as I said, it is not going to be good exposition, and that happens to be a strong indicator of when a show is well written. So let's just end this part by accepting the obvious. If a story is unable to present facts without resorting to boring monologues, then it's not well written. It is as simple as it sounds. Sight is the other sense that is used for exposition. You transfer information by text or by images or by having characters doing something. It is way harder and far more expensive to be done properly, since it involves coherence, motion, and cinematography, things which far exceed the demands of having somebody talking. But when done properly, it also produces way better immersion than what talking exposition could ever hope to achieve. For starters, there isn't much language language barrier, since most things mean the same to all people around the world. An anecdote, for example, can be funny only if you understand the language it is spoken in. Slapstick comedy, on the other hand, is physical, and the joke would be the same regardless of what language the characters are speaking. There are some limitations when it comes to body language or ethical barriers. A character doing the victory sign won't make sense to anyone who doesn't know what that sign means, and gender bender jokes won't be funny but rather disgusting for cultures who don't like that sort of thing as the one which produced it. But such cases are not that common, and as a whole the imagery wins over talking almost every time. The proverb, one image is 1,000 words, stands true, so imagine how many thousands of words it takes to describe 1 second of fluent motion that can split up to 24 frames, and then compare that to a second of a character standing still and just flapping his mouth. From what I said earlier, showing something fits better when it has to do with facts or events, or to put it in a more classic way, don't say it if you can show it. And as it turns out, most things can be shown. Actions are the most obvious application, but even non-physical stuff like emotions can also be made clear not just with facial expressions, but also with cinematics such as the lightning used or various symbolisms. In fact, the only time it is not used properly is when it's not showing stuff that it should, when things happen out of screen or are implied, when it withholds information which ruins the immersion. Whatever follows here on has to do with both forms of exposition, it is not limited to hearing or sight. After that last part I mentioned about withholding information, many of you will probably think that sometimes it is a mistake to reveal everything right away. What if a story wants to have mystery and suspense? It can do that only by keeping you in the dark. You don't know how this happens? Keep reading to find out! You don't understand why this character acts the way he does? Keep watching to find out! In an ideal situation, by the end of the story, you will indeed be given a satisfying insight to that. But as you start watching more shows or reading more books, you realize more and more how this rarely happens. Almost always the story ends and many things make no sense or are never explained. The writer didn't explain them because he wanted to maintain a mystery, but because he couldn't. He either never really thought about it or didn't care and assumed neither would you. Regarding this situation, of course not all things need to be explained. If there is one big problem all classic hard science fiction stories share, that is how they spend a lot of time trying to explain a science that is not invented yet, only to be proven wrong in the technicalities. Plus all the time spent doing the explaining is taken away from getting to know the characters or letting the story move forward. Why spend so much time on something that is eventually trivial and eats up so much time? Character motivations, on the other hand, must always be explained one way or another. Otherwise you have characters doing stuff with no justification and pass as badly written. And again, the more you read or watch, the more you realize how most characters are like that. They either never excuse their actions or contradict them when they do. And yes, I am pretty sure real people have mood swings all the time and that they change their minds over many things as they get older or wiser. This doesn't negate proper exposition. Changing their minds and attitudes is fine as long as it is shown why. Because almost always fictional characters will be doing something stupid or contradictory, and the only thing people can attempt to excuse it with is by saying, oh, they are teenagers, they were confused, they make mistakes like all people do, they are not robots. I understand all that. It makes sense, and I would be glad to accept it if the story bothered to show it. Show it, not imply it. A good writer doesn't let the audience give answers to whatever he overlooked, because let's face it, if a story can make sense only if the reader or viewer provide the answers, then it's a badly written story. Now, I know many who at this point will complain and claim that giving your own interpretation to a show is a good thing. You are not giving everything on a plate, you have to think for yourself. And the story is not trying to shovel a message down your throat, it leaves things gray and open for you to choose whatever you want to take away from it. For example, fairy tales are known for trying to tell you very specific moral messages. The story of The Boy Who Cried Wolf is supposed to teach children not to lie all the time, because this way nobody will believe them even when they tell the truth. You are not supposed to put any thought or questioning into this, because if you did, you would have easily reached to completely different moral messages, such as be cunning and use a different lie each time. So, taking this into account, you can claim many stories are written to have an open interpretation, while others are meant to be very specific in their themes and messages. And the more you read or watch, the more you realize that most stories belong to the latter category. If you think most anime are like Ergo Proxy, you're kidding yourselves. Most are like Sword Art Online, where the message is video games make you awesome! And nothing is really explained, so the fans can give any answer they want to its terribly conceived plot. That's not good exposition, it's the opposite of it. So the next thing you'll probably think is that not all shows need to be good at exposition. If they are escapism and empowerment fantasy, they are cool when they make no sense and give you an ideal situation where the ideal characters are doing the ideal things just for your pleasure. The only explaining you need is to be shown how everything can be awesome! For example, the way the narrator speaks in shows like Kaiji or JoJo offers over-dramatization to the events taking place. It's not vital to the actual plot and it's making a hyperbole out of everything, but it's still helping you to get into the proper mood. That is fine if all you want is entertainment, but becomes a problem when the fans of such shows are trying to excuse entertainment as good exposition. You know, trying to make every little thing that happens in Kill la Kill or every weird background in Madoka Magica to be deep and well-presented symbolisms regarding feminism or something along those lines. The whole thing becomes pretentious, with presentation and exposition being confused with wishful thinking and self-indulgence. In such cases, the only thing you can say is, take a cold shower, you guys, it's just pretty colors. Art, for the sake of art, is hollow when there is nothing really there besides you overthinking it and adding stuff that the creators never bothered to even think about. TLDR, show facts, tell opinions, don't show or tell how deep your head can go up your ass and then call that a talent in exposition.
Not okay!
I often find people claiming fan service is not part of the narrative, so it can be ignored during your criticism of a title, which is a lie since many are watching a title because of the fan service. Using the same logic, people claim fillers are not part of the plot, so they can be ignored and will not affect your criticism of a title, which is a lie again since very few are skipping them. They either watch them because they are too invested or they give up on a series because nothing happens. There is also the notion where fan service and fillers are needed as comic relief or points of relaxation between major events, which narrative-wise are a waste of time since they do not offer anything, and on top of it they take away from the experience. A well-written story would use relaxation points to flesh out its characters and the world they are living in. Highlights and showdowns are supposed to be the clash of everything we were shown during relaxation points. If an author is lazy enough to be doing both in the middle of a battle, by having the characters info-dumping everything regarding their backdrop and how their powers are working, then he leaves nothing for in-between scenes besides meaningless slice of nothing. Same goes with fan service. If that is the only way an author can keep the audience interested during important events, then he knows there isn't much in terms of themes or interesting presentation. He desperately tries to keep everyone distracted with nonsense that only ends up ridiculing characters and themes. So basically, fan service is in service of bad writing. With that out of the way, let's clarify how anything that is resolved in a way that feels like a cop-out still damages the narrative despite being in service of it. Plot convenience is bad writing despite not being fan service or filler. It does help a character to overcome a situation and it does progress the plot, but when the method used feels undeserved, then it comes off as lazy and disappointing. Removing convenience makes things harder for the characters and more interesting for the viewer. If a good ending cannot happen because there is no logical way the character can succeed in a specific situation, then you have a bad ending as the only logical conclusion. It will be tragic, but at least it won't be badly written and it will be in service of the narrative.
Not okay!
When it was stated the series has no tension because we already know the ending from the protagonist's mouth, a fanboy theory crafted the possibility of Deku lying about it. There is no evidence to support this claim, he just said it to defend the show. The thing with unreliable narration is that it's often used as an excuse for ass-pulls. Although we are not supposed to accept the author of a story using every character as a mouthpiece for his personal agendas, we still need to trust what we are told or shown in order to understand, feel, or analyze a series. When they change what was said earlier and completely turn around what you knew up to that point with no foreshadowing, then it's an ass-pull and you're treated like an idiot. It's also what happens recently with the ridiculous power-ups the female Saiyans are getting in Dragon Ball. They try to defend it by saying the Super Saiyan transformation is not hard to achieve. The heroes just didn't know that at first and assumed it was a legendary power only one warrior every 1000 years could acquire. Yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with nerfing the transformation, so every Saiyan can achieve it as a lazy power-up. The same applies with many other shows, which expect you to take things for granted before switching them around when they are inconvenient, such as defending Sybil in Psychopaths as a necessary evil, since without it society would be way worse, and yet on every step of the way you are constantly shown how incompetent it is, how other areas are way worse because of it, and how the ideal Sybil citizen is the one who knows all that and doesn't want Sybil. This is the result of people accepting everything at face value, while at the same time ignoring the obvious.
Not okay!
They had to call upon the god of everything in order to solve their problems, which part of me knew that this was the thing, but part of me was so immersed that I didn't care. Goku dismissed it, and so did I.
Something I hear a lot coming from fans of obviously bad shows is how they do not see the problems in the narrative because the protagonist doesn't see them either. The excuse is they consider those stories as character-driven instead of story-driven, so they accept everything that is going on as identifying with the protagonist and viewing things as he does. They even go as far as saying you're not supposed to bring your personal beliefs and knowledge in a fictional story because you're not the protagonist. You do not think like him, nor does he know what you do. You can only view the story through his point of view, therefore ignoring the obvious makes sense. Just like everything else nowadays, there is a trope for this sort of situation and its name is plot-induced stupidity. The characters are behaving idiotically so the conflict won't be solved too easily. Most viewers who like the show will not care since they are engaged. If the protagonist ignores it, so do they because it's supposed to be in character. It's easy to explain the whole thing as badly written when to the most part it's not bad as it is lazy. The author is deliberately writing the situation as such for the sake of maintaining tension and not because he's not self-aware. This makes it worse in terms of quality since a bad writer is not aware of the problem, while a manipulative one is and capitalizes the short side of the audience. We can applaud the writer for managing to trick the audience like a good magician, but it also begs the question of how receptive is an audience supposed to be? Are we meant to accept everything that is going on without using critical thinking? Are we supposed to limit ourselves to in-series logic alone? And even if we do, what kind of logic can explain irrational human behavior? Humans make mistakes all the time, so what counts as being in character when they are so chaotic? What is a character-driven story when anything they do is excused as typical human error? What's the point of wondering why they did something when it's just going to be ignored as normal? Some consistency is needed and not everything should be accepted as fine. Because if you do, this will happen.
I'm so happy.
Not okay!
People keep lowering their critical thinking. The actual content of a show becomes so insignificant to the point it doesn't matter how information is presented. This idiot made a big fuss about people being wrongful when they were confused with what Violet Evergarden was about. All it takes is to read the interview of the creators concerning the actual theme of the show. Meaning, it doesn't matter if a show is doing a crappy job at being clear with what it's about. All it matters is to read the intention of the director instead of judging the final product.
Why is My Hero Academia so good?
It obviously reminds me of Naruto.
There is no need to put any effort in your work anymore because the only thing that matters is the idea instead of the execution. A thing further supported by the pretentious overthinkers who are constantly making up shit for the sake of passing as smart. It doesn't matter how good the show is, it only matters what bullshit analysis you will pull out of your ass instead of evaluating the show for what it is. Oh, and what also matters is spending half the video in advertising paid content than analyzing the thing the video is supposed to be about. It's all about that sweet money, baby!
He's going to be the greatest hero. And like, how
Yeah,
is that?
he says that in the first episode.
Yeah,
It's like, how is he gonna get there?
Yeah, and like, I want to know.
If you need external information to a show in order to understand what the hell is going on, then it has bad exposition. It's as simple as that. The same thing can be said about anyone who defends the 1,000,000% power-up in My Hero Academia. Oh, it makes complete sense if you read the thoughts of the mangaka instead of, I don't know, expecting him to show it in the damn series? It's a freaking shonen when everybody constantly states the obvious. It's not trying to be subtle, so there is no excuse for not making it clear. This is bad writing 101.
They do such a good job of building the worlds. You get a good sense of the academy, and like you get to see like not only Class 1A, but you get to see Class 1B.
Yeah.
All these like side characters. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to know more about those guys.
Yeah.
You know? And it just feels like a very like really interesting world.
And by the way, it's not as if this is legit criticism you can use all the time for anything. Many are using the bad exposition excuse for any show they don't like. Neon Genesis, Hack, and Parasite are shows that are not very clear about what exactly is going on in the background. You need external information to get the full picture. The difference is, it's not as bad there, since you understand what the show is about even without a wiki to fill the holes. Not having a clue about what Violet Evergarden is about, to the point you don't even know if she's a robot or not, is vital to the story. How the hell can you punch someone with 1,000,000 times more power in My Hero Academia is very important in evaluating the consistency of the power scaling.
Best girl.
Oh, okay. My answer is Gravity Girl. The relationship between her and Deku is just so precious.
And it's so, like, funny.
Like, if they don't end up together by the end of the series, I will be devastated.
And that is why critical thinking is vital in evaluating a show instead of just randomly talking about stuff you see in a show. Like this asshole who keeps talking about using the internet when adapting stories that were made before the internet even existed, and doesn't care about the writing being so bad to the point it doesn't matter if people are using smartphones or not. You wasted your time on praising the adaptation for modernizing the technology, a completely superficial element, instead of criticizing it for not fixing the horribly written script. What's the matter? Too busy whoring your own girlfriend?
It's gonna be like the next biggest anime if it isn't already.
I can't wait.
I
can't
honestly,
wait for everything that's gonna come out
Part
of
of
this.
me, like, I want it to be like really nicely wrapped up, but I also want it to go on for like hundreds of episodes.
Not okay!
So I found this guy who was wondering why many people disliked the scientific explanations in Bunny Girl Senpai. They add surface-level realism to how everything works. None of the characters was an actual scientist to expect a legit explanation. It sparked discussion and interest in the audience regarding the validity of the science. And above all, it's fiction, so it doesn't have to be exactly like real life. If you break down each one of these defenses, I can agree that disliking a show because the explanations are not smart enough is pretty dumb. Having a dumb explanation is still better than not having one. There was no explanation for what caused the time travel abilities in Erased or why the rules of how it works were constantly changing in every episode. As such, it came off as a lazy plot device that can work however the author wanted it at any given moment. On the other hand, the Force in Star Wars was always supposed to be no more than an ever-present power that makes everything work the way it does. It didn't need any further elaboration, such as the midichlorians, because it doesn't add anything to what it's used for. It's basically magic, anyone can use as long as they know how to. Also, scientific explanations being proven wrong is something you can easily accept if the person doing the explanations is not an actual scientist. This is why whatever bullshit Okabe says in Steins Gate can be overlooked, since he's not really a scientist. When Kurisu gives an explanation, it's much harder to accept since she's supposed to be a legit scientist and most of the things she says are technobabble, but even then you have to keep in mind how science is not infallible. It keeps changing all the time, and when it comes to fringe science, then it's basically science fiction, so again there is nothing to complain about. Regarding the whole sparking of interest about the explanations, it's a purely meta aspect of a show that just makes it more memorable and relevant for a longer period of time because people will keep talking about it way after it has been completed. It doesn't make the actual show better or worse, it only makes it more memorable for the amount of things it made you think and talk about. So sparking your interest is always better than not sparking your interest. The quality of the show or the validity of the sciences have nothing to do with this case. You're just left with a show people won't forget by the time the next season arrives. The last part about being fiction, so you just accept it, is the only defense I do not accept, since it's used as double standards. There is no consistency or one meaning when you say that, and it's something relativists and pseudo-intellectuals turn to when they are cornered. If, for example, someone calls a show relatable because it feels like real life, and then you point out all the instances where it's not like real life, then he cannot reply with, "It's fictional," because it contradicts his earlier claim.
I am fucking not okay!